A new survey by YouGov has found that 16% of teachers have admitted to self-censoring in front of religious pupils. The centre-right think tank claims this has created a de facto blasphemy code in schools across the country. It says the Batley Grammar School incident, where a teacher was forced into hiding and received death threats after showing a class a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, has, quotes, clearly scared the teaching profession. Well, joining me now is Toby Young, General Secretary of the Free Speech Union. Toby, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure. In this report, the foreword is written by Nadeem Sahawi, saying Batley was a national disgrace. And yet here we are. This report of over 1,100 teachers shows that teachers are quite literally living in fear.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. And the actual headline figures in the report are even worse than your initial introduction implied. So the headline figure is that 55% of teachers in English schools wouldn't show a picture of Muhammad to their classes. And it's partly because they saw what happened to the teacher at Batley Grammar School when he did that. He was immediately targeted by a Muslim outrage mob, denounced in the local mosques. You had crowds of angry Muslims outside the school. He had to go into hiding with his young family. And as far as I know, he still hasn't returned to teaching at that particular school. He didn't get any support from his head teacher, who suspended him pending an investigation. He got no support from the teaching unions, and he got very lukewarm support from the government. So, you know, it's understandable in a way that teachers think, well, if I was to act similarly, the local Muslim community might react in a similar way, and I'd be completely isolated and vulnerable. For teachers that have young families, that's obviously a huge risk.
Yeah, Toby, I can confirm that the teacher is still in hiding with his wife and children. He's not teaching anywhere, never mind the same school. He's too afraid to go back to work. He still daily lives in fear of his life. And so, Toby, it's absolutely no surprise, is it, that teachers across the land are living under that shadow of fear. And it seems, when you read reports like this, Toby, that the mob has won.
It does, Martin. And one thing the Free Speech Union is doing to try and rectify this situation is to persuade the Department of Education to include free speech amongst the British values that schools in England and Wales are expected to promote. At the moment, they're expected to promote mutual respect and tolerance of people with different religions and beliefs. But that's not the same thing as respecting or teaching respect for free speech. And the head teacher of Batley Grammar School, when he justified suspending the religious studies teacher who'd shown his class a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, said that he thought it might be a breach of the British value of teaching mutual respect and tolerance for people with different religions and beliefs, because it was disrespectful to people with Muslim beliefs. So far from protecting free speech, that particular British value, which schools are expected to promote at the moment, was invoked by the head teacher to justify suspending the teacher in question, which is really shocking.
And Toby, another concerning fact that's come out of this policy exchange think tank is that 36% of teachers surveyed admitted they were getting guidance on how to avoid causing offence in their lessons. So teachers are being taught how not to teach in case it offends people.
Yeah, no, it's very disappointing to learn this, Martin. There is no right not to be offended. And if you believe in free speech, that means defending things that some people are going to find offensive. I mean, it would be one thing, Martin, if teachers and schools respected the blasphemy codes of Muslims. By not mistreating the Quran, not reproducing pictures of Muhammad in lessons and so forth. But if that's where we're going to go as a country, if we're going to respect the most sacred, precious beliefs of particular minorities, then I think it's reasonable to expect those minorities to respect the most sacred and precious beliefs of the indigenous British population. And we certainly don't see any reciprocation along those lines. We haven't seen that in the last 6 weeks with the protests every Saturday, the pro-Palestinian protests, which often lead to the desecration of British statues and war memorials. We saw that last week with the protest outside Downing Street, some of the protesters climbing all over the memorial to the Royal Artillery. I mean, if Muslim communities want teachers and schools and school children to respect their most sacred beliefs, to honour their blasphemy codes, then it would be, I think, helpful for them to similarly respect our most precious and sacred values too, instead of trampling all over them.
What can be done about this, Toby? I mean, we have a situation now where almost 2.5 years on, a teacher is still living in fear of their lives. We had a situation where a 14-year-old autistic boy damaged the Quran. His mother was dragged in front of what appeared to be a Sharia court, wouldn't press charges because she was too scared. This is continually happening, and yet there seems to be only demands for tolerance in terms of it being a one-way traffic situation.
Well, one thing the Free Speech Union did after the teacher at Batley Grammar School was targeted by a Muslim outrage mob, we wrote to the Charity Commission to complain about the way in which the hostility towards the teacher had been stirred up in the local mosque. And subsequently, I know some other people, including me, but not in my capacity as head of the Free Speech Union, just in a personal capacity, wrote to the Charity Commission to complain about various anti-Semitic sentiments being expressed in mosques, which are registered charities. So one thing you can do, I think, Martin, is you can encourage the Charity Commission to hold the feet to the fire of the faith leaders in mosques preaching this kind of intolerance and hatred. In addition, you could join the Free Speech Union's campaign to try and persuade the Department for Education to ask schools to promote free speech, which they're not doing at the moment, and to promote genuine tolerance for different religions.
Toby, we have to cut across you there because we now need to cut to David Cameron, who's speaking at the Global Food Security Summit. Let's go to David Cameron live now.